All right, we are live. And some say, well, YouTube says he's an edgelord that's too spicy to be on their platform, but here I am. Today, we are here to see if he can really bring the heat. He's better known to most of you guys as the mayor of Orc City, and he now has two books out in his Age of Adventure series, which makes him officially a two-time author, and that means that you all are obligated to take him seriously now. It is my pleasure to welcome John A. Douglas on Indie Book Launch here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. Broadcasting live from Orc City.
And it is not on fire as of right now. So, John, we are here because you have just released on the 4th of July your second book, The Lionheart, which I understand to be another entry into your world here. So
Yes, indeed. I should have gotten I should have gotten a little file over here to you. I might dig into that a little later to talk about the Douglas arc. But yes, I've got the proof right here now. The proof copy of the book. Now this does not. This is not ready for prime time just yet. Still got a few tweaks to do with my editor, but you can see the cover right there. Looks fantastic. This was a bit of a labor of love, but this was also a bit of a labor of grievance towards a lot of what I saw in like superhero media, the constant deconstructions, the constant subversions that you saw in the genre. And when I wrote The Black Crown, which you see right here behind me, I kind of had a bit of a publishing plan in mind, a vague one, just a regular series, one book after another, like everyone else does. And then I kind of started to think about what I wanted more was a setting that I could do multiple series in. And what that ultimately led to was something I call the Douglas arc. So what I'm doing with these books is rather than just one book after another book, one book, two, book three, book four, and so forth. And, everybody's got an incomplete series at this point. I decided that my first three books will be three starter books following three different sets of characters in the same world. They're just in different locations. And The Black Crown was a, more bog standard, classic D&D style, epic fantasy with a few twists and turns here and there. But with this one, the Lionheart, this one was very much a different beast. This is a straightforward action adventure superhero story. It's a superhero and an epic fantasy. And I didn't set out to go like, oh, wow, I came up with an idea nobody else did. But when I realized, like, I don't think I've ever heard of anybody doing this kind of a genre mashup before. Usually you get like an isekai, some or portal fantasy, some normie dude from the real world comes over into a fantasy world, and of course they wreck everything because they know more. They've got special powers. I mean, my gosh, Japanese literature and anime is full of those kind of stories. But here I just took the notion of a caped superhero origin story and just set it in an epic fantasy. And so I rolled with that, and that's what this wound up being. Because I wanted a character that could fight on like big threats in the world that other characters possibly could not. Someone that's more special than a lot of the other characters that are in the world. This was a lot of fun to write, a lot of action scenes, but also a little frustrating to write because I didn't outline this as well as I should have. So what happened was I would get to chapters, and these were chapters where I knew what I wanted to accomplish, but I didn't know how to accomplish it, and I ended up getting stuck for months. So this little bitty book took 2 years to write, and it's a little bit of a point of shame for me, because to me that is inexcusably long for my output, for the goals that I have in mind. 2 years is inexcusably long. Unless I was doing something that was very big, very complex, it shouldn't have taken that long. Especially, this is like 100,000 words less than The Black Crown. And even some people felt like The Black Crown was a bit chunky. It was 193,000 words. And I did actually recently put out the second edition of The Black Crown, where I ended up changing some things and making a few cuts and revisions and made it a little more palatable to younger readers, to Christian readers as well, because I had some parents that would message me behind the scene, and they were like, this is great. If it wasn't for the vulgarity and a few of the risque scenes, I would hand this to my kid. And I kind of, hey Joe, and I kind of felt that a little bit myself when it came time to when I was reading the story to my daughter, just as a way for me and her to connect. She's big into art. She loves drawing. She draws for hours, and I would sit there and I'd read it to her. And I had the amount of self censoring I had to do kind of made me realize I would rather have this be more accessible to all ages. Because if you think about it, Lord of the Rings, Dragonlance, they are not considered children's story, but they are accessible to children of all ages. Mostly. I mean, you wouldn't call Lord of the Rings a bloodless tale. You would not call Lord of the Rings a strictly child's tale because everybody of all ages reads it. And that's kind of where I was shooting for. Originally, I didn't want to get holed into the YA section because that's just a completely different beast. And plus, I feel like YA books kind of talk down to that readership group at times. And I wound up making those revisions, and I think they ended up making a better book out of it. So when I was writing Lionheart, I'm like, I want to have this particular tone. I need to go back and I need to chop up the Black Crown a little bit so that they match in tone. And going forward, I would like all my books to kind of have that same kind of all ages accessible and accessible to Christian readers, especially because we have so many books out there that are there's a lot of indie smut, there's a lot of indie grimdark and things like that. And not that I have any issues, Michael, good to see you, sir. Not that I have any issues with the books existing, but especially on the books talk, book smut side, like I'm not comfortable with it subsuming so much of the industry and so much of the book space. That's I don't think people think about what it's like when you normalize degeneracy and vulgarity in culture. Uh, and so I'm not a fan of it. So I didn't want my work to reflect that. So I dialed it back a little bit.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and I'm with you there. I myself kind of, I would say, straddle the line between like what would be adult versus something that is accessible, and I think it's valuable to have those stories that maybe are they're a little more not mature in the sense of explicit or vulgar per se, but like having more complex ideas or go to a superhero movie. I don't know. I like the idea of
Oh
the
yeah,
superhero and the fantasy. It is kind of interesting because you say that, and yeah, that's not like a mashup that I think I've ever seen, which is fascinating because you have wizards and magic per se, right? Like so.
right, right.
Um,
And I actually went through. I was planning this very carefully when I came up with the idea for the Lionheart. It was during the writing of the Black Crown, and part of that process was okay. I've got a superhero. Obviously, he's going to fly. Obviously, I need to, but if you're in a world where generally when you see in like D&D and a lot of fantasy and elements, it's not unheard of for the wizards and a lot of characters to basically become Avengers. I intentionally went through and was very specific about nerfing the magic and the wizardry, how magic works and how it's applied in my world, so that uh, when this guy takes to the sky, it would actually be impressive and unbelievable to the people of this world. To that end, you can go back and find passages in the Black Crown, very specifically saying wizards cannot fly. I'm putting that seed in your head. Okay, the wizards can't fly. They can levitate an object. I make it very specific. Like they can levitate an object and make it move in like one direction, but it's a very high tier, powerful spell. It's not done that often. It's like kind of an emergency thing. Get on the bench and send it that way, kind of a situation. So it's not like they can just get on a chair and make it zoom all around, because that spells like unidirectional and at one speed. And if they want to change direction and speed, they got to drop the spell, cast it again, really hard. Something really really hard to do. So that when this guy takes off, they see this guy flying, they're like, no, 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 that is impossible. That should not be. $65. Well, it was not my intention to trick anybody to buying a second edition, but I did not. When I wrote the Black Crown, I wrote it at the kind of tone that I usually read at, that I'm usually subsisting at, which is kind of a maybe a hard PG-13 at times. I don't mind vulgarity, I don't mind a little risque stuff, although when it pops up, sometimes it really just kind of throws me off. I'm just not used to that kind of material when I read, and it really throws me off a little bit. The violence is all right, violence all day and night, yes, but when it came time to when I just kind of looked at it, I feel like at the time I was putting vulgarity and more risque situations in there because I didn't want to be pigeonholed into the a YA hole of sorts.
Yeah.
But now then looking back at it, I didn't need it. And I had people tell me that the book didn't need it. The character that used vulgarity the most was Cortland. And he used a mix of real vulgarity as well as rural colloquialisms that sound vulgar. And everybody agreed his rural colloquialism stuff like pus suckering, pus bucket, and piss soaked arse fly, stuff like that sounded more vulgar than actual curse words. So I'm like, okay, well, we'll dial back the actual curse words. It's a lot of work to come up with his colorful language too, but it toes the line a little bit.
That's a lot of fun.
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to pop up this beautiful cover because I do actually have. Let's see it in bigger format. Because it is a beautiful cover. Like this is what I love to see. I know that you will agree as far as the idea that the indies just do it better with the covers, especially compared to nowadays.
Well, I think it's definitely the indies have popped up and taken the ball that Trad Pub has dropped, which is they have not given us the kind of beautiful, evocative covers that we used to enjoy in years past. So, in doing so, this is what drew me to the indies in the first place, because I was going through and I used to go back into the bookstores when I was a teenager in the mall and everything, and man, you just had rows and shelves and shelves and shelves of beautiful hand-painted, oil-painted Larry Elmore, Frank Frazetta covers. They just look gorgeous. I mean, my God, even the romance novels, the Harley Quinn novels of their day were much more evocative and interesting than what you see now, this minimalist stuff. And everybody asks, why did they do that? Well, it's pretty simple. Yeah. They're what I call artisanal covers. They look very pretty on a shelf. They don't give away necessarily what it is you're reading. And maybe that was those beautiful Harlequin covers back in the day kind of communicated, hey, ladies reading a little bit of I don't know the phrase. I don't want to use that phrase. She's reading a little bit of something should be reading in the bedroom instead of out in the open. But people hardly do that anymore.
Well, maybe that's why they're all cartoon covers now, right?
Exactly. It's kind of tricking you about what their actual content is. And frankly, I think it's a little slimy, but it's also cheap on their part. They do it for everything, not just for the romance novels. They do it for, thank you, sir. One of Jay Caleb's best. Jay Caleb Designs is my artist, and that is an old joke between me and Andrew Campbell. And man, I just started getting into it. I saw all these great indie covers, and so many of my indie covers are cover buys. I even look, he's in the chat right now. Look, I've got Wistful Ascending. Not the only person to come up with the idea of superhero indie books. This was a good read, by the way, guys. I recommend this. I got to get on book second at some point. But I'm gonna show off a couple just because some of these are just so good, and you just don't get this kind of book covers anymore. Look, let me show off a couple. Some of my favorites. We got The Seventh Cadence by Jim Wilbert. He is wonderful dude, great guy. If you like Brandon Sanderson, Robert Jordan, this is a great read. This is almost divine providence. I found Jim. I saw his ads on Facebook before he even had this book out, and I'm like, I'm just going to follow this guy. And I'm going to read this book when it comes up because that cover looks amazing. Another booktuber, Aaron Payne, Falling into Oblivion. That's some cyberpunk. That's gorgeous. robot dude fighting a robot dragon in
Awesome.
what's the phrase I'm looking for? Cyberpunk. Like, how can you not like this? My camera sucks, so these covers are not being done justice. Another booktuber, Tori Tekken, Cold Silver for Souls, little fantasy western. I love it. Uh, Molly, is it macabre or macabre? I don't know how to say it.
I think it's
I'm not
macabre.
usually much of a horror reader, but I don't mind stepping outside my given genre. But look at this great cover. Does this not communicate what to expect in the book? You don't get that from trad anymore. And another favorite of mine, Sledge versus the Labyrinth by Nick Horvath. Heads up, there might be, if you're a Sledge reader, there might be a little nod to Sledge in the Lionheart if you're a very astute reader. I like putting little Easter eggs in my books, and the Lionheart has a couple of them. There's a Def Leopard Easter egg. There is a Destin J. Munden. If you read his tavern books, there's one in there. The Black Crown's got a couple. There's a Norm Macdonald joke hidden in there. There's a reference to Thousand Arms, which is a PlayStation 1 JRPG. If you know, you know. It's just little fun stuff like that. But I like to let people find them if they can.
Yeah, that is fun. So I would love to know so we have a superhero in a fantasy world. I'm noticing he's a melanated individual, which, according to the, interweb.
Yeah, a little bit.
So maybe.
When I was coming up with the idea, the original Inception, the original concept was simply a guardian type character, and that meant I just had a placeholder concept, right? I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but about the time that I was coming up with the idea, there's a lot of discontent in a lot of the nerd spaces about how there's what they always end up doing is race swapping a lot of heroes, and instead of creating their own original black characters. Now, not to sound like that kind of honky, but when I was growing up in the 90s, black superheroes were really cool because they were not the norm. They were a lot different. And I grew up with a set of them that I really liked. One of them was the movie Meteor Man, which Robert Townsend, and that was his whole inception. He's like, we don't have a lot of black superheroes. And he wanted somebody that was, was family friendly, kind of made by them, for them. But it was I liked this movie because there was not a lot of superhero stuff back when it came out. Another one was my favorite was Cable from the X-Men cartoon, because he just looked cool. He had a cool power, he just looked like a boss. And there was a lot of Cable in the design of the Lionheart. There was a TV show called Mantis. That was another one that was good. Blade, of course. And I just thought this was all around the time I was sort of writing this. It was also the time when they said, hey, we're getting a black Superman movie written by a guy that hates America. And I'm like, oh, you SOB. I had kind of hoped that would go through so I could market this against it. But they kind of ended up falling through. So whatever, it's fine. But I didn't set out to write a black superhero. I did write a superhero who is black, because when I was thinking of when I write any book, I think what can I do that's different than what other people are doing? Right?
Yeah.
With the Black Crown, the most obvious thing is the main character is a half orc, and I'm in a bit of a minority of authors who use a half orc or an orc main character. It's usually not the norm, and usually when it's done, it's not done the way I did it. So when I came up with a superhero, I'm like, well, why don't I just have a black superhero? There's a lot of discontent about not enough original black hero characters, so I'll just make one of my own, throw it into this concept. The setting is also original because it's a bit of a fantasy Egypt area called in the world of Allspire, called Nornrath, which is when I looked at a lot of old school Egyptian architecture, it's very fantastic on its own because it's so different. And just applying that to what would a fantasy Egypt look like, kind of brings into a completely different kind of a setting. Now, I don't know anything about Egyptian I don't know a lot about Egyptian mythology or history, things like that. I've been a poor student of history. So I didn't draw on a lot of really anything more than the architecture of the area, just to kind of, you can see it on the cover a little bit, in that there's a lot of sandstone buildings, and you get the sense this is a desert area. And so that's kind of what it was. Just like the third book that I'm working on is going to be set in a gas lamp kind of fantasy British setting, if you want to call it like that. I haven't got a good description down tight, but I'm working on it. I'm always working on something.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you were talking about the concept. What was the main goal that you set out when you're creating this character for this story? Like what kind of, aside from a superhero story in a fantasy setting, what
The
was the
main
main
the
drive to?
main the main impetus for this character was a restoration of altruistic heroism. In the last few years, more than anything else that went into the creation of this character, was my contempt for subversive superhero stories that we have seen. Number one would probably be The Boys. Number two
Yeah.
would be the evil Superman trope that's been in multiple series by now. Even though I like the Omni Man story, by the time he popped in, I was sick to death of the "what if Superman was a murdering asshole" trope. What if all our superheroes were just assholes like us? And I hated it. I really do. I've come to a place where I do not like this trope anymore. It's hung around since the 90s. Guys, it was tired in the early 2000s, and it's persisted for a while. The gray morality, anti-heroes, it's burned me up. We have come to a place where we do not have as many altruistic heroes. We do not have with the characters with those strong convictions of heroism and where they come. And I only did a good Injustice. Injustice was an Elseworlds world. I didn't mind it. I didn't mind Injustice too much, being kind of its own thing. But man, they ran it way too long. So I did want a character who had a strong sense of justice, and I don't mean his idea of justice is killing. For a Superman character, yeah, me too. For a Superman character, a lot of people have an issue with Batman's no kill rule, and if you look at it too hard, yeah, it kind of makes sense. it kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense. However, with Superman, it's a little different because Superman has the power to basically be God, and he has the power to be judge, jury, and executioner with almost no repercussion. And so a no kill rule for that character makes much more sense. And that's kind of, I did end up going through the steps of this character whose name is Artemis, and coming to the conclusion why he has a no kill rule and why he understands that he should not be killing, because it is a miscarriage of justice that he is not a representative of the law. He is essentially, a vigilante citizen. not to use a bit of recent movie nonsense to put in it, but that's kind of what he is. He's a superpowered citizen vigilante at this point. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Garth Ennis, especially The Boys, because he very specifically did not like superheroes, and then he wrote a superhero story, and it went about as well as you can imagine. I didn't care for it. I don't mind occasional anti-hero stories, but I really wanted someone good,
I feel like you
someone
need to
genuine.
love the thing that you're creating, right? Like
Hmm.
and then if you love
But
it, then maybe you're better at subverting it or exploring some of the other questions.
yeah, so story-wise, what happens is Artemis is the main character. He starts out in the prologue discovering that he's arc blind, which in Allspire means you cannot access magic, which is a bit of a heartbreak for him because his father is an archmage and he wanted nothing more than to follow in his footsteps and be an archmage too. So he decides to switch gears and become an inquisitor, which is the Allspire's equivalent of a judge. The way the law system that I kind of had to create on the fly while writing Black Crown is an inquisitor is basically a judge and jury at the same time. And they're expected to be altruistic enough to carry out that role. He's got a friend named a childhood friend, Nero, is known since childhood, who's a street rat. He's a thief, but he tries to help him, kind of get him on the right path until the end. Now, I'm not spoiling anything here, guys, because this is chapter 1. Into chapter 1, Nero stabs him in the back and leaves him for dead. So you can imagine that will kind of create a bit of a perception issue when it comes to killing people, someone being stabbed through the back and then, left for dead. Essentially, from his perspective, he kind of did die. He's saved from death, thankfully, by this cosmic entity known as the Walker of Worlds, who is a bit of a Bugs Bunny character of sorts. He is simply I don't want to say a god, maybe God with a little g, in the guise of a man who walks from world to world, seeing what he can see. And, sometimes he's a pauper, sometimes he's a prince, sometimes he's a teacher, sometimes he's a warrior. But always he just goes from world to world because he doesn't want to lose touch with being a mortal, because he was a mortal at one point. And he saves Artemis at the moment he was about to die, and hears his story, has sympathy on him, and infuses him with a shard of his cosmic power and turns him into the Lionheart, which he gets that name a little early on. I don't like superhero stuff where they get the name like right at the end credits as they're zooming towards the screen. Now, he calls himself that because he needed an alias. He needed an alias, and his father once told him he had the heart of a lion. So you get that out the way. And the unfortunate part of gaining his power. Now, he has a bit of a Captain America glow up when that happens, because when he's in his mid-20s, Artemis depowered is a bit of a scrawny dude. He's a little wiry, a little tall. He's half elf, so he's not like big and strong. But he gets that 7-foot tall Captain America glow up when he gets his powers. As the Walker puts it, my power needs a vessel that's strong enough to wield it, so it made you a vessel strong enough to wield it. And from there on, they start to go on the adventure of first trying to rescue a church, a temple full of children that gets kidnapped in the first chapter. And so Shards, oh, sorry, buddy, never read any Sanderson. Can't claim to have stolen anything from the guy. I did have someone say, like, you copied Sanderson Sanderlanche. What the hell is a Sanderlanche? What are you talking about? And he's talking about like the end of the Black Crown, where a lot of narrative elements that I propped up throughout the book end up paying off, and everything collides at the end. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I didn't know that was a Sanderlanche, but I guess, if you're going to copy from the best, why not? I just liked how the story came together. That's all there was to that. I don't do that exact same thing here in Lionheart, though. This is much more of a straightforward story. So readers of the Black Crown who were like, oh, wow, I didn't see that twist coming. You're not really going to see twists like that in this book. It's not. There's a couple small ones maybe, but there were moments in the Black Crown that were hinging on a particular twist. Don't read them. I've heard good and bad things. I don't. Yeah, right, Chadwick. It's kind of crazy. I've had that happen a couple times. More often than not, what happens to me is I will think of something that I want to put into a story, and then I don't write it, and then someone else does it. You want to know what the best example is? In the 90s, when I was just a teenager and writing everything I could think of, I thought of a superhero name. I thought, oh, this would be a great superhero name. And I never did anything with it. And wouldn't you know it, years and years later, it got used. And the name that I came up with was All Might. And that wound up being in My Hero Academia. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be sore about something like that. All I thought was, I should have used that in something before then. But it was weird. And this has happened on a couple different, I could list like 3 or 4 different things where I'm like, I I thought of this, and somebody else used it for before I had a chance to. I'm like, wow, am I putting out some kind of author mind waves or something? Or are we all just kind of keyed into the same creative wave somewhere? People are plucking what they can out of the air. I'm sure, I could find instances of stuff that I've written being done by other authors elsewhere. I haven't read nearly enough people to say that I'm stealing from anyone, but that is kind of how art goes. Is artists inspire other artists. And so you're going to end up finding stuff that's like, hey, this is like X, but slightly different. Oh, okay. It doesn't bother me one bit. I don't mind at all. if somebody looks at the Black Crown and says, you know what, I'd like this a lot better if the main character was an elf. Okay, well, go for it. See if you think it works better. Personally, I think orcs are interesting. They're one of my favorite fantasy races, and not a lot of people we're doing half orc or orc protagonists. That's one reason why I did it for the Black Crown, to be a little different, from everybody else. And I mean, there's a chosen one trope on the inside of it, but I end up doing a little bit of a subversion with it. Exactly. And I execute it in a way that's a little bit different. A lot of people that, might not reach the end of the book don't know that, because they don't end up reaching the twists that happen in like the last 2/3, the last third of the book. But with the Lionheart, like I was saying earlier, well, we get going with this. It's a lot more straightforward, but one of the twists to it is that if you read the Black Crown and you know enough about the Arcane Order, which is the zealous organization that polices the use of magic. In Allspire, I didn't come up with a magic system. I just constrained its use very significantly, to where instead of like requiring this and this, having to learn a gaming system, like Sanderson loves doing that. I know Sanderson does a lot of, game system stuff when it comes to his magic systems. I'm not autistic enough to develop like a magic system that's that deep. And even if I did, somebody would probably start poking holes in it. What I did do was make magic require very specific and at times very difficult conditions to work properly. Otherwise it doesn't work, which is kind of how it worked back in the day when, Dungeons and first edition Dungeons and Dragons. So you've got to channel your magic through a conduit, a wand, a scepter, or a staff. Otherwise, you are using your hands, and that's a risk. Why is it a risk? Well, would you fire bullets while you were holding them in your fingers? You can, not impossible, but there's a risk there. And when it comes to mages, part of what the conditions required is you have to use the correct pronunciation. Exactly. They train not to get distracted. And they have to use their somatic finger movements correctly. If none of that is done exactly correctly, it creates a backlash, which spells are like a little like electricity. Once you start it, it's there, it's waiting for you to finish. But if it's interrupted and you create backlash, it could either fizzle out, be used incorrectly. Most of the time, it just kind of blows up in your face. And, so if you know those conditions, you can kind of interrupt a wizard in the middle of casting if you're quick enough and you're smart enough. Yeah, there's no science behind it. The science is how they use it. So the thing about the Arcane Order is they are very, very specifically have certain classes of magic that they are dead set against rising up. Mainly because there was a character, this was mentioned, this is Black Crown lore right here. It's only touched on a little bit in Lionheart. There was a cat named Selrock. He was called the God Sorcerer. 1,200 years ago, he was a sorcerer that had no upper limit. He almost became a god. The gods actually stepped out of their divine realm and smote him off the face of the earth. They were not having it. So when the Arcane Order formed several centuries later, they were dead set on making sure no one in those classes of magic ever rose to prominence again. So they hunt it zealously. Sorcerers is one, witches, no go, because they require they're kind of necromancer. They require other people's life energy, specifically children. Necromancers, of course, who is the villain of the Lionheart, Emperor Praetor, who is the ruler of Nornrath, is actually a very powerful necromancer, which, unfortunately for Artemis, the Lionheart, is his one weakness. Every superhero needs a weakness, a significant weakness. He is hardy versus magic use, right? Strong enough magic spells can phase him. Enough of them together can hurt him. But necromantic magic itself will genuinely harm him and can kill him. So, that's a little bit of a problem when your greatest enemy is also in possession of your greatest, what is your greatest weakness and can wield it at exceptional volumes. The fourth class that's a little bit of an issue is warlocks. Warlocks, I've always been fascinated with them in the D&D sense. They get their power from some kind of otherworldly being. And as I explained, Artemis gets his power from the Walker, who is a unknown cosmic being, not of their world. Artemis is a warlock. Artemis, by his very existence, is now an enemy of the state. As probably one of my favorite lines in the book put it, you have not made me a paragon of justice. You have made me a fugitive from it. So my Superman in my world is essentially an outcast as well. So the ruling class, the Crown Pantheon, they're called, and as well as the Arcane Order, consider him an enemy now, just by the virtue of how he got his powers. And so he is hunted by the law while also trying to enforce justice within the realm of the law. So it's the kind of dynamic that I really love putting in stories, and always trying to tweak things just a little bit. So there's always that little bit of a twist on something, and I really feel like this came across well. The ARC readers that have finished it so far have really enjoyed it. It's a very straightforward story, and it's meant for a great palate cleanser. When you're done with one of those big chunky 800-page novels that absolutely rips your souls out. Everybody loves talking about how I was emotionally destroyed. You can come back right here, and you can get emotionally built back up. That's been a big part of my writing philosophy. Is I have always read for entertainment, and I don't mind stuff that's done. Hey, Jenny, good to see you. Jenny Wirtz, wonderful to see you. Thank you. I've always been of the opinion that it's great to have stories that maybe end. I prefer like a bittersweet ending, right? To me, if you're going to have like a bad ending, a bittersweet ending helps out a lot. My issue with Grimdark thus far has been a lot of authors do not include that sliver of hope in there.
Yeah.
And the ones who do are very good at it. Christopher Brenning, who wrote The Hellborn King, he's very good at that. But I really like stuff that emotionally builds you up. And I want, when people get done reading my books, I really want them to feel good and have a smile on their face, feel like they got a complete story, a good adventure. You had some fun. There was a little bit of danger, so it wasn't holding your hand or anything along the way. And I feel like I've got that with a lot of what I set out to accomplish. And to that end, hold on a second. Author fuel. So anyway, when I came up with the arc structure that I wanted for the books moving forward, I tried to think of a pithy name for it, and I couldn't come up with anything. So I just called it a Douglas arc, right? Like if I'm going to invent something, name it after myself. I came up with this idea called the Douglas arc. After I talked to, I got a review from Blaine Pardo, who, if you don't know, he wrote BattleTech novels for 30 years. He's a military sci-fi author. This is his most recent series. I'm gonna move my camera over here. That's his series right there, Land and Sea, which is a military sci-fi, aliens versus big stompy robots adventure. Great stuff. Love reading his writing. I interviewed with him, and he read The Black Crown. It shocked the hell out of me. Did not expect that. One thing he said stuck with me more than anything was, he said, it felt like a complete adventure. And I did not sequel bait the reader. And that's true. I ended it on what felt like a good ending. Yes, I have a sequel in mind. Yes, I'm going to continue with the series. Uh, but he felt like it was a spot you could jump off. And I thought that's really that's really an astute observation. And it's not something that serviced a whole lot. I'm going to share my screen with you. Because I'm going to
Yep.
explain. I brought up the, where's it at? Come on here. I'm going to share that with you if you want to bring that up for me. Oh gosh, hold on. Share this tab. Hold on, let me fix the tab. Share this tab. There we go. Okay. This is how the Douglas art works. You can see at the bottom, the concept is 3 starter books, 3 direct sequels. Book 7 is the arc conclusion and a crossover with all 3 book series that you're following. And the more I thought about this structure, the more brilliant it just kind of seems, because it's for every kind of reader. I don't have like exact stats, but you've got something like a 60-40 drop off when it comes to people going from book 1 to book 2. You have like 40% of your readership is going to keep going with your books. 60% is going to stay at book 1. And I thought, what if I had more book 1s? Each starter book having a different appeal than the others. And you can start with any of them and decide, hey, this is good. I'm gonna go read the other starter book, see if that hits. Yes, that's so far. Yes, I am a Christian, and I do now write Christian, at the very least, Christian safe books. And with the starter books, it's like Black Crown. It's a D&D style classic epic quest fantasy, right? Book 2, The Lionheart, that is a straightforward superhero action adventure. Book 3, which is forthcoming, the Court of the Scarlet Shrike, is going to be a swashbuckling vigilante romance adventure about a deposed princess waging a vigilante war to win back the seat that she lost on the houses that killed her family. And the man that is hunting her, tasked with stopping her, is the man that she loves. So you can look at any one of those. They each have a different appeal for a different kind of reader. But each book is going to be written in such a way that if you wanted to one and done, you can. Because you have more people that one and done books than go through with the series. And that's a smart thing on Brandon Sanderson's part. Not saying he was an inspiration for this, but he's got multiple series. They are kind of interconnected. I'm not trying to do that necessarily. I feel like this is much more straightforward, and it makes sense to my brain. And I like things that make sense to my brain. So for the readers that are genuinely invested and want to go through, and they go through in the books too, that's when, big things start happening. That's when you start having more, characters kind of crossing over potentially. And by the time you get to book 7, if you're invested enough to go through and read 2 or 3 of these books, you're going to be invested enough to want to go and read all of the books. So that when you read all 3 series, all 6 books that come before this, book 7 is going to hit the Avengers. It's going to hit like the Avengers did. But for the readers that just want to say, this book was all right, I'm gonna leave that there and not go forward, they don't feel like they got baited to a sequel. They don't feel like, oh gosh, the first book was okay, but I don't know if I want to keep going to the second book. Normally you do kind of end it. You're supposed to kind of end it a little bit of a cliffhanger and say, hey, there's more to come. But if you want to stop at book 1, it's fine. The book 1s are, I think, really important, especially in this era where you have got George R. R. Martin and Patrick Rothfuss, especially. This is not a hot take, guys. This everyone knows this. You have got the long-running fantasy series are kind of, they're kind of poison the well a little bit, because Game of Thrones is never going to be done, and I've said this before. But when it comes to sorry, hold on. Just in my observation as a book reader, the long-running fantasy series thing is kind of starting to run its course. And while there is still an appetite for that, like a lot of people are starting to get a little burned out on it. Like where you look at bringing Sanderson back up again, his big book series. What is it? What is it called? The one that has Way of Kings and whatnot. The fifth book in that just got dropped not that long ago, and there was a lot of dissatisfaction with kind of how it ended. And a lot of people were saying, you know what? I think I'm kind of done with the series at this point. I think he's already said he's got 5 more books in it to go. Well, my God, where could that possibly end? And I just feel like something that works for every reader works a lot better, because you can I feel I'm repeating myself here. You can stop or you can go, and it caters to both kinds of readers. To me, that's the brilliance of this. And I don't do many brilliant things, but I do have my moments. And I think this makes sense to me. This feels like the direction that I want to go with my books. And I'm working on using the Douglas Ark for this Age of Adventures, as well as a sci-fi series that I'm working on and I'm hoping to drop. But when I do the the sci-fi series, I'm going to wait until I have all 3 starter books done, and then I will drop them all at once. In a disappointment. I mean, maybe. Sanderson's young, and unlike George R. R. Martin, he actually does write books. So we will see. Yeah, the Lionheart will return in Doomsday to save the script. So I've been excited. I've been ready to drop this. I've been working on this for a while, and those issues that I mentioned earlier with the Lionheart not plotting it out well enough, not going to have that with Court of the Scarlet Shrike. It is very extensively plotted out. Still got a little room for some improvisation if I want to, but I am not getting stuck on chapters again. I can't let that happen. I can't go 2 years between books. It's unacceptable to me for in regards to my output, how fast I want to put out books. Because I said that on Twitter. And some people kind of got mad. Nothing works for every reader. Beauty of individuality. That's true. But I do feel that catering to as many readers as I can helps. And they can pick up any of the starter books, put it down, and be fine. And they're designed that way. I feel like it's going to make a lot of readers happy. So get enough starter books out there and then start working on sequels. I know there's some good readers that are hungry for these books and different kinds of books. I'm always looking to try and, do new things. I'm excited. This has been a long time coming. I just need to get better at some of my infrastructure game. I've mentioned this before, and a little bit more in the social media, not just shit posting on Twitter. I'm good at that, but these days it does not translate well to, say, book sales, not too much. But then again, everything else is not working all that well either, because the sands have shifted. And if anyone's been paying attention, like the golden age of kind of the indie publishing on Amazon is kind of in the rearview mirror. The algorithmic gimmicks that the indie authors used to use to get really well known and come out with box sets of like 10 books to sell to whale readers, that's not as much a thing anymore. TradPub is still kind of in a shaky spot. Most of what they're doing is romantasy or romantasy adjacent, and that's not appealing to every reader. But these days, when it comes to a lot of the we're seeing a lot of backlash against not being able to own your digital products. I think it's starting to have a lot more of a resurgent for a desire for physical products. Twitter ups a lot of times should be spent running. That is true. I would counter that a lot of the time you see me writing on Twitter, I am in a spot where I'm not able to sit down and write because I'm doing something else. That's just a matter. If you don't see me talking for too long on Twitter, it's usually because I am writing. Although I do freely admit there are times while I'm writing where I just lean over to the phone and kind of pull on what's going on Twitter. No. Got to stop that. Got to stop it. It does. Social media will eat a lot of time, but it's an unfortunate cross to bear, guys. I'm sorry. And these days, just putting out that you have a book almost isn't enough. You've got to garner attention towards yourself. this is going to be the hardest thing any indie author is going to want to hear. It's something I figured out, something John Della Rose figured out as well. It's a better idea. If you want to sell books, get popular doing something else, and then throw your book in with it. Right? Be a popular game streamer. Be a do something on TikTok that makes you get you a lot of views. Do something that draws eyes to you, and your book is there. Just your book, like that has worked for some guys. Z.S. Diamante, he's a guy that focuses entirely on his books. He's done exceptionally well. I cannot be nearly as nice as he is, unfortunately. I'm too snarky. Thank you, Bill. My work ethic, hard work is the only thing I've ever been good at. I got that from my dad. And usually I've applied it to other things, but I apply it to my writing these days as well. I needed that. But I've said all I can about the Douglas arc. You can take it away now if you want. If you have any other questions, I can answer what I can. But
how do I take it away? That's the question.
Uh-oh.
Do you have a share screen that you can unshare?
Yeah, I can probably do that. Hold on. Stop sharing. There we go. Camera's been
I'd kill it if I could.
Slowly down. All right. Yeah. Yeah, Sarah Fire, being your own marketing team is the hardest. And it is something a lot of indie authors don't like. Here's the bad news. Even if you were traditionally published, most of the time you're going to end up doing your own marketing anyway. Matt, I had videos 3 years ago talking about this, and it was true then. It's true now. I forgot what E.K. Johnston. She was a Star Wars author, and put that she was very irritated that she got asked to do her own marketing. Quit moving, camera. Sorry, guys. It wouldn't be a stream with me if I didn't have tech issues. But the game has changed. You got to draw attention to yourself. You got to market your own book. Yeah, but you kind of got to put yourself out there. One person that I have kind of looked up to in regards to this matter is Razorfist. He's a YouTuber. He likes reading books. He wrote his own books, and they're good books too. They're novellas. They're pulp-sized novels about a thief named Xerxes. And one of the bits of advice that I took from him was have an opinion, but be prepared to defend and explain it. Don't just fling stuff out there. Don't get me wrong. I do fling stuff out there on Twitter all the time, mostly because it's fun. So much of what you see on me posting on Twitter is really just shower thoughts, things that I think of off the top of my head. I'm gonna check it right now. But earlier I was in Target, and every time I'm in Target, everyone knows what I do. I go to the book section. And I posted that 3 hours ago. It's already got almost 4,000 views. I didn't even say anything hardly that I haven't said before, but I've done that. There's no books for guys in the Target book aisle tweet several times, and 2 times it went viral. One was mega viral. It's the most viral my Twitter account ever got. 30 million views on that one. That was bigger than Orc City. Jenny Wirt's last 5 titles the publisher listed marketing everything that I already covered. This is not how I started decades. No. And it's an unfortunate circumstance. Literature has kind of taken a bit of a dive in a lot of areas. My wife is eating cake in front of me. Thank you. So, yeah, not right now. I'm talking. I'm selling books, babe. Let me sell books, and then I'll eat cake. I'll have cake afterwards. I've earned cake after losing about 15 pounds the last 3 weeks. So anyway, yeah, it's unfortunate to see, like, just literature in general has kind of shifted a lot. In some ways, it's lesser. We do have less kids graduating that are able to read, much less read at complex levels that a lot of literature exists at. And that's another reason that I make my books, relatively easy to read. It's a reason I wanted to make them more accessible. to younger readers and give them, so parents did have something that they could hand to their kids and say, I know that I'm not going to have, my kid's not going to come across something they shouldn't in this book. I have that concern as a parent as well, because when I peruse like Book Talk and Bookstagram, and a lot of the there's no other way to say it, the smut readers, what they put out, that a lot of times they're very shameless in what they put, and it's very obvious they got a hold of books that they at an age they should not have, and I think that begets itself, but to say that a lot of the readers aren't there, is it's not true. That they have shifted to other places that kind of cater to what they are, especially the male readers. That's been the big topic that pops up every now and then on social media, is, oh, there's less men reading. No, it's they're reading what interests them. They're reading books, they're reading the literature that interests them. And I'm not sorry to say, ACOTAR, it does not interest them. I've seen the men that review these things, review these books, and it's very obvious it's not for them. A lot of them read it anyway to one kind of FOMO, to kind of see what the big deal is. But a lot of the influencers do it because, let's be honest, you're playing the algorithm. You're not reading ACOTAR for its depth and complexity. You're writing the algorithm because it's popular and you want the views. You're not slick. I know what you're doing. But by all accounts, but that's a romance book, right? That's the thing that a lot of readers don't necessarily understand, is that a romance book, the romance is the main thrust of the plot. No pun intended. I understood that when I've read romance books in the past. The world building and the plot almost take a bit of a second, kind of a back seat to the romance plot. The romance interaction is the main part. That's what they're there for. So when guys who are not used to that kind of a book end up reading them, they're like, "This is man. What about the world building? What about the plot? What's going on? Why? I found a plot hole you could drive a truck through." Okay, but that's not what the readers of those books are there for. Understanding that, I think, is kind of great. I'm sure that there are romantasy books that do kind of hit the world building and the romance and the plot and do it all well together. I haven't read too many. There was one I did. Where is it? Hold on. I'm trying to find it. Oh, God. I've got too many books and not enough shelf space. Here it is. It just got a trad pub deal. This was indie. I read this. This was actually a good one. Hopeless Necromantic by Shiloh Breyer. This actually just got a new cover that she drew. And it's a great concept, great characters. The romance was good. It was not smutty. It was not stupid. It kept my interest the entire time. So if you want a John A. Douglas approved romantasy book, I do recommend this. I do think you would like it. I am a bit of a romantic at heart, so I don't mind romance in my books. So some male readers don't like romance in their book at all, but I do like it more as kind of a side thing, right? If it's the main plot, it's a different mindset altogether. Am I wrong, Jessica?
Nah, I mean, I like romance in books, but I don't read much romance myself.
Right.
That said, my next idea for a project is more of a, I guess you would call it fantasy romance, because romantasy implies the romance first. I think that's how that goes.
Yeah, that's how I read it. That's how I read into it for sure. There we go. Thank you. Yes, it was a nice cover. That's actually the second cover. It got a completely new cover. I've never seen this was the original cover that it had when I first saw it, and that one's pretty cool. I kind of dug it. It did have a indie book vibe to it, but when I saw the new cover, I'm like, you know what, man, I really like that cover. I'm a cover buyer, guys. I have made no shame about this whatsoever. I said it earlier. I'll buy books based on the covers. So I was like, you know what, I've got to get that. I'm going to buy the third cover too, just to be a completionist. Line up with your spiky. Well, I don't know what to tell you. I am a bit of a spiky personality, but it comes with working in construction for so long. Sometimes, and look, not for nothing on Twitter. On Twitter, sometimes it's a bit of a show. Sometimes I'm a bit of a character. Uh, I try not to be too negative and too snarky because that can kind of drive people off. At the very least, I try and be entertaining. These days on Twitter, you kind of need something to make you laugh. Uh, I resent anyone that says that I rage bait, okay? Any rage you feel reading my tweets is entirely on you. I never post anything with the intention to make people mad. I just do it naturally. I just seem to have a gift for it. I don't know what it is. I'm sorry.
It's easy to just make people mad with benign, well, things that you would think would be pretty benign. You could be like,
Oh, yeah.
I really like the color of this bag, and somebody's gonna get
Oh,
mad.
so you don't like blue?
Exactly.
That's the majority of how Twitter works. And again, some people can be very wholesome. But there's also from some people I have, and even in the book spaces too. I'm not going to name names, but even the book spaces, I have seen an element of performative positivity, and I don't like that. I think it's okay to. Can I curse?
Okay? Totally good.
Sometimes it's okay to tell someone to go fuck off. Okay. Yeah, tongues are being bitten. Sometimes it's okay to tell somebody that they can go fuck themselves. And there are some people who are very, guys, be positive all day, all the time. Don't let negativity in your life, and they end up being very thin-skinned people that I've come to find out with any pushback whatsoever, and they get so ass mad. And it's like, my guy, just snap back. It's okay to snap back a little bit. That's why I like Mike from Mike's Reads Books. He very casually will, just tell people, whatever, fuck you, don't care. And he gets the weirdest comments, the weirdest hate comments on his thing that people get mad at him for very benign opinions on his page. And look, some people, when they reach maybe a certain popularity level or a certain level of notoriety in the online spaces, it becomes fashionable to dunk on them, right? And there's some authors that are like that, and but then again, there are some authors, indie authors that I've seen. Again, not naming names, some people that have kind of gone their own way are just too negative for their own good and too bitter about the state of things. And I try not to get that way. I'm a very despite my spiky tweets, Janny, I am a very positive-minded person. I try to be positive. I try not to black pill because, as Razor Fist always says, the black pill is a suppository. Okay, and it doesn't accomplish anything. Yeah, you got to have that little bit of hope, and I'm not trying to be the beacon of light that everyone comes to, that some of the performative positivity people try to make themselves out to be. Because I have seen some very shady stuff that come out of those spaces with that mindset. A little bit of dark, and a little bit of light. Yeah, I think that makes a well balanced. But most importantly, it's authentic, right? What's this about Orc City? Mention Orc City. If I think you never actually named it Orc City. Just said the Orc. Yeah, that was the whole funny thing. Do we want to talk about Orc City? Because that's fun.
Oh, absolutely.
To me. I love it. Joel, it was 1 year ago this month, July the 4th, 2025. I was doing more of my snarky shower thoughts. Hideo Kojima is the director of the Metal Gear Solid video game series, and someone whose work I've sometimes enjoyed. But from a creative standpoint, he's got some really wonky ideas. I don't want to go too in depth, but one of those things is his naming conventions, which, man, he'll come up with some weird stuff. He's got a character who's acts like a vampire, has all the qualities of a vampire, is named Vamp, but he goes out of his way to say, no, he's not a vampire. What? He's got characters called Die Hard Man because he is hard to kill. Okay. Thanks. So there was a character he created called Fat Man, who is a bomber who wears a bomb suit. It's a ridiculous design concept. The big fat dude that wears a bomb suit that rolls around on roller skates and drinks champagne out of a large straw of a wine glass with a large straw. It's ridiculous to look at, and I've always thought that. So I just kind of dropped it last year. Somebody retweeted the opening passages of The Black Crown and said, "This is how this guy's book starts." And that happened, I think, on July 3rd. And it started building steam. A lot of the big shit posting accounts on Twitter started picking it up. They saw a target. They saw blood, smelled blood in the water. They ran with it. I woke up on July the 5th because I was not paying attention to it on the 4th. I was with family, popping fireworks, having fun with the kids, occasionally blocking people who were dogging on me. I woke up on July the 5th. I was at work for a couple hours, sat down at my lunch. I started looking at Twitter. I'm like, what? My notifications have blown up. My phone was on fire. And you couldn't. I started seeing the memes all over the place. Orc City this, Orc City that. People repeating my memes after me. There was a brief, like 30-minute window where I'm like, the whole internet hates my book. I'm a laughing stock. Oh no, what am I going to do? They're like, it's what no author wants. Right. It's not the kind of attention you want. I felt like there was no positive way to spin it until I talked to Ryan Stone, who is another author. It's got some books out there. And he's like, dude, these memes are all over the place. You have no idea how lucky you are. And I'm like, wait a minute. Really? I was on knowyourmeme.com. Orc City was a meme enshrined in internet history now. And it clicked. They don't have any idea what they did. This isn't just making lemonade out of lemons. This is the best marketing I could have ever asked for. Tens of thousands of people on social media. It broke containment. It was over on Facebook. It was over in Reddit. People going, what is this Orc City thing everyone's talking about? Yes, I did get a lot of unfortunate review bombing from that, especially on Goodreads, where only retards leave reviews. It is a cesspit over there. They one star review bombed the hell out of the book over there. Thankfully, over there, not on the actual sales page on Amazon. But I realized what this was because memes are forever, guys. If you find yourself as the main character of the internet, like I did, remember. Roll with it. You can't fight the internet. You can't fight memes. Getting mad about it just makes them laugh at you harder. So I rolled with Orc City. I made them. I shared the memes. I called myself the mayor. I was rolling with it all weekend. And at first they were trying to go, no. You can't say, we're laughing at you. This isn't yours. I'm like, oh, yes, it is. Oh, yes, it is mine. I'm the mayor of Orc City. You cannot take this from me. And so I rolled with Orc City for weeks. I made it a deluge so that anytime anyone was looking at Orc City, they were looking at my tweets, my memes. And I ended up getting a lot of readers from this because guess what? They appreciated that I realized I was getting dunked on and I just rolled with it. Because you can't fight the internet. You can't. And I've known this. And I kind of mentally prepared for this kind of a moment for a long time before now because I'd seen people in the comic spaces and the author spaces get canceled for nonsense. That you can't fight it. You have to roll with it. And I made it mine. That wound up being the best. For anyone that says Orc City was a disaster for me, that was the best sales week I ever had. I had over 10,000 KU reads just that week alone for the Black Crown. And now it's just kind of my identity. And when I did, now, to be fair, hold on. I had already planned on doing the revision of the Black Crown by that point, and I was kind of thinking about what to cut. Admittedly, everyone's the biggest critique that I got from both good and bad faith sources for the book was the prologue, which initially I had used to try and set up elements that were going to be paying off books later, right? Mainly the introduction of Sothrin and his son, and some of the other elements like the Knights Valiant. And look, there was a lot of stuff on the mental stack by the end of the prologue, and so I kind of wanted to parse it back. I parsed it back to just the part that related to the orcs themselves, but I did keep the opening passages of Orc City because that is the meme. And if I changed it and got rid of it, that would be admitting defeat. And I'm not going to admit defeat into Orc City. Orc City shall live forever. And I kept the opening passages that everyone remembers and are still the meme. But I did trim the fat a little bit, trim the vulgarity down, trim some risque scenes that were a little bit what you might find in like a shoujo anime, animes for boys, because it was more of a teenage boy coming of age story, and so there were some kind of risque moments in there. Not everyone was cared for that, and I just kind of cut those out, smooth over the rough edges, but keep most of it. And I trimmed it down, made it a little leaner, kept the Orc City part because the Orc City just cannot ever die. I'm probably going to get it printed on a poster at some point. Hell, I might have the cover redesigned so that I put the Orc City passages Orc City on the front. Back. Yeah, when I initially was conceiving the Black Crown, and it was much more straightforward, the prologue would have made more sense for a series, but I changed directions with the Douglas arc like we talked about. So the prologue didn't make as much sense for that. And I've kind of grown as an author. I was talking to Destin J. Munden. He's reading the Lionheart right now, and he's sent me a message earlier saying, dude, it's incredible how much you've grown between books 1 and 2. And I'm like, even I can recognize that. And that came out of a, how do I phrase this? In the years that I've been reading indie books and even some trad books, right, I've started to notice there's a bit of a trend where there's a lot of books with a slow start. Now, I already have an issue with books. When I pick up a new book, all right, this is me picking up a new book. Okay, new world, new characters, new settings, new rules, new names. I have to reset my mental stack. I've got to relearn all this stuff all over again and start cracking it open. And I read, and there are times I am not invested in a book until maybe the 50% mark. Now, by the time I get invested, I can't put that book down. I'm like, I've got to finish this. There are times I'm reading so fast, I miss details and I have to go back and reread them because I'm so anxious to get to the next chapter, get to the end. But even for myself, the Black Crown has a bit of a slow start. What I wanted to really do, especially my books from now on, is get the plot going, hit the ground running. Lionheart hits the ground running immediately. End of chapter 1, the main character's been stabbed in the back. By the end of chapter 2, he's met a cosmic deity and gotten superpowers. Let's go. I just wrote got done writing the first chapter of Court of the Scarlet Strike. It might be one of the best first chapters I've ever written, just because we are in the mix of the plot immediately. Let's go. Let's not waste time. Let's do the world building on the way. Let's not be, dropping lore bombs and everything, which I have a contention with that anyway. But yeah, let's get these books going a lot quicker, because even in the indie spaces, I don't mind a slow burn sometimes. Thank you, Jenny. It's good to see you again. Very much appreciate it. I hosted Jenny's launch party for her final book when that happened last year. I've still got it on Rumble, Jenny. It's not on YouTube no more. Sorry. So again, Jessica, I really appreciate this.
Yeah.
But man, them slow starts were starting to kill me. And I read a couple. I was like, my God, I need something shorter, punchier, something, get to this plot quicker. Just because the stuff that I'm interested in, I'm waiting for the good hook. I'm waiting for the plot intrigue. I like, the characters are great, but some authors just take their time a little too much. And I think that's been something that's kind of hampering the indie spaces a little bit. And, some people will say it's the lore dumps. Personally, I don't mind a lore dump. Like, my God, how many lore dumps are in Game of Thrones? Nobody complains about those, right? He could go on and he could go on and on describing a ghetto, and it's fascinating just the way he does it. I think some readers have kind of gotten to this point where they see two, three sentences explaining what's in the history, and they call it a lore dump. And oh no, lore dump, Scarlet Letter, DNF, 1 star. Like, do you want things? I know, I know having like 2 or 3 pages of history explained to you is aggravating, but when you're complaining about a paragraph, 2, 3 paragraphs, doing a little bit of world building, like, do you want the world explained or not?
They only read the dialogue, John. They're only reading.
And you know what? Since that has come to light, I'm starting to think that's the case. They want dialogue heavy stuff, which if you want dialogue, just go listen to Netflix shows. That's all they are, is people standing around talking about their feelings.
Playwrights, go read some scripts.
Not saying that there's not a quality to that if you get like the right audiobook narrator and whatnot, but this is fantasy. You're in different worlds, TikTok brain infection. Yeah. I think a little bit, but I mean, it depends on the readers. Like a lot of the readers that you and I are in these indie circles are not necessarily in the book talk circles, which, I mean, that's just this whole thing altogether. Like, as good as I am posting on Twitter, my shorts material on TikTok and Instagram, not quite as good. Just because it's time consuming and my brain's not wired that way. My brain is wired to shit post on Twitter, but that's just the nature of the beast. That's it is what it is. I kind of wish I'd started doing it a little bit sooner, but YouTube was another aspect that I really liked before my channel got taken away. And looking at what happened, it was probably I got caught in that AI moderation wave where they're just yeeting channels that the AI deems inauthentic or something. It was not because I hosted somebody who had been previously banned, which was the initial explanation I'd been given. When I actually got a human on the line, it was more along the lines of, it's inauthentic content. Okay, whatever. But the good side of that is, if I want to get back on YouTube don't care. Like, Doug TenNapel has been banned from, he's had like his channel banned twice, but he still ended up getting a third channel that has over several 100,000 subscriptions to it, right? YouTube is really at a point where the moderation don't care if they kick off somebody who's legitimate. They're not going to care if you get back on it either. But these days, I do not quite have as much time for that as I used to. And YouTube videos, as much as I liked making them, they are time consuming. I do like streaming. This right here, what we're doing, I do like this a lot. And I think I'm a little better at it. It helped me get my camera shyness under control when I had a YouTube channel and I started streaming, because I was very much about turning a weakness into a strength. I would have been doing stuff on YouTube years before now if I had been able to work on my camera shyness. But I would get in front of a camera and I'd just be like, I was really self-conscious about it. These days I'm like, no, fire up the camera, let's go, let's roll. I took advice from Gary from Nerdrotic about just get a camera, just get a mic, and start talking. Start building an audience. And that's what a lot of what we do here on social media and all is. And it's why your channel is important. The thing that I hated the most about losing my old channel was about a year into it, making just, bog standard culture war nonsense. I started to see that there were a lot of indie authors, comic creators, not as many platforms. So I just kind of turned my channel into a platform and interview indie authors like you're doing here. And it really helped. It really kind of became a place that indie authors, could go on and talk about their stuff. And I like talking to indie authors, indie comic creators. And when that was taken away, that was one more platform less for people to, kind of get a word out. Mike from Mike's Book Reviews kind of mentioned this on Twitter sometime last week when had the discussion about indie book reviews, and he's like, "Hey guys, guess what happens when I review an indie book?" And he didn't even need to say it. I knew exactly what he was going to say. The
I know.
views down. Why? Because it's not what draws the eyes. What draws the eyes is the more popular stuff, and I understand that. That's the nature of the beast. I still did it because I am indie author, ride or die. Even if I say got some $1 million trad deal tomorrow, which I'd probably take because I have a family to feed. Okay, be perfectly honest, I would still be doing something in the indies. I would still be supporting and reading indies because I believe in what we do. Well, once upon a time, I did not believe this. I thought if an independent person was good enough, they'd be going mainstream. Well, the mainstream used to be something that had a level of meritocracy to it. And you could believe that somebody got put in the position that they're in, especially in traditional publishing, because they were just that damn good of a writer. And we don't have that anymore. We have people that are put there because of their demographics or because of their audience size is too undeniable. I'm talking about like Matt Dinneman and Ryan Cahill here. They built a sizable audience that was too large for these traditional publishers to ignore. And now the benefit of now they're in a spot where they don't need to be on Twitter hawking everything, trying to raise attention. Their books got a size, a big enough of an audience that the books are now selling themselves. And the only thing they didn't really need the trad pub for sales, they needed it for larger level distributions and getting them translated into other languages, which is something that we as indies can do. It is simply time consuming and expensive. I've already kind of putting out some feelers to a dude to kind of help get my books translated into other languages. And look, I'm trying to save up money, guys, so I can have audio books. I'm not a huge, excuse me, let me just shift in my chair a little bit. I'm not a huge audiobook listener. I have started in the last few years really getting used to audiobooks, but I'm not going to discount it just because I'm not as frequent of an indie of an audiobook listener. But I need to raise the money. And everything that I raise from both shit posting on Twitter as well. Yeah, I mean that's the indie spaces, guys, is it is a foundation built on shifting sands. You kind of have to be ready to move with it. And that's something I've always understood.
I have the same problem. Yeah,
this is pretty good. What if it?
Yeah, everybody's like, you should start with. Didn't you start with short stories? I was like, no, I've been writing to the novel because, I mean, I don't even know. Like, how do you tell? How do you not?
It's admire the authors that are really good at selling their stuff on Book Talk and Bookstagram because that is, it's hard to be consistent with that for me, especially. I'm just not wired that way.
The video stuff is.
But I also believe another one like these guys are just like, I'm doing a Reddit AMA. Why? What is there? It is of no value as far as an indie author goes because the mods over there are power happy. They're politically brain rotted. And when you start asking them what they like as far as books.
All right, John, I got a baby who needs to go to bed.
Yeah, and I've apparently got a nail in a tire I got to go take care of.
It has been fun.
Well, wouldn't be the first time, won't be the last. I've changed a lot. As a man and a husband, I've fixed a lot of flat tires in my time. Just part of my husbandly duties. But thank you for having me on here, Jessica. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this has been fun. I am glad to give you the platform and the space. And we've had the busiest chat I think I've ever seen, which is fantastic. I love the action. So thank you, everybody who came and tuned in and watched.
Yeah. Subscribe. Hit that subscribe bell, or whatever it is. Smash the like button. Smash it as if it was your stepsister. I mean, what?
That's right. I can't, I'm going to keep doing this, but I would like more than, 10 eyeballs on these. So
I hear you. If I can ever train my YouTube algorithm to let me know that you're live or you're posting something, that'd be a big help too.
That's
the correct. YouTube algorithm is like It's like a trained mule. You have to beat it to get it to do what you want it to do. There's a little booger. Precious. I miss the baby days. I won't lie.
She snuck in on, she was just crying her little brains out.
Right. Well, thank you guys for dropping in.